2 down, 1 to go in the Titans 2024 preseason as they get it done again. 16-15, the final score, the win over the Seattle Seahawks, and we are here to talk about it with you. It is the Lee Company Titans Talkback. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Alongside Dr. Kevin Dyson, I'm Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams is our producer. 615-737-1045 is how you can jump into the conversation. And Dice, this game felt a little bit more like a preseason game than last week. Not a lot of starters, if any, out there for the Titans, but got interesting late. Braden Narveson goes 3 for 3 in the fourth quarter, the undrafted rookie kicker, and the Titans win.
I guess you got to start there. You got to start with the brightest of the bright spots of the night. Are we creating some kind of kicking controversy going forward? I mean, he's got a big leg. You put the NFL on notice. He's going to be a guy that people are really going to take interest in. 3 for 3, hitting one from 59 that could have easily been from 65. I mean, he put his back into that one. Like he nailed that one. That's one of those one game winners. You just Hail Mary, game winner, 60-something yard kick. He nailed it. And I don't think the Titans thinking that, but it'd be interesting the way he kicked the ball today. Jalen Harrell, another guy who stood out. You know, a guy who got after the quarterback, forced a fumble, just was disruptive on the defense side of the football. I thought Malik played well for the most part. He still has those moments where you scratch your temple, and that pick and the inaccuracy on that was there. I thought but he still makes it hard for you to decide which way you're going to go with it. I think he does some things that the other two don't do, and that's interesting. Of what you want in your backup. We'll see what they go with that. I think everybody's assuming Mason Rudolph will, but I think Malik is making it hard for them to just make that just definitive. The offensive line, for the most part, being all backups, they did pretty well. I think a lot of the pressures, especially early on, were coverage type things where the guys weren't open and Malik maybe missed a guy, or they waiting on guys to get open, and then their guys get free, and so he had to scramble a little bit. Even that first sack, I think Malik held on to it a little bit, but but that's again, nitpicking. Overall, man, like you said, it was a preseason game. It was uneventful for about 3.5 quarters. We get to that second part of the third quarter into that fourth quarter, and it's nip and tuck, and both people get possessions to try to win the football game there at the end. And it came down to who has the ball last, and unfortunately the Titans were, and Naverson went ahead and did what he did, man, and win the game. It's always good to get a win.
Well, we're already seeing it, Dyson, the F&M Bank chat, at least, where you can hang out with us on 104.5 The Zone TV, streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Kicks Good says Narveson made his case, and I think we should keep him. One of the first things Brian Callahan was asked about after the game, he confirmed Nick Folk has a firm grasp on the kicking job for the season. I'm reading that directly from the Twitter of Jim Wyatt, but Callahan said he loves seeing the success from Braden Narveson. That's what preseason is for, right? Yes, guys are battling out for roster spots, and you want to see the starters get a glimpse of just kind of where they're trending as you get to the season, but it's also about the Braden Narvesons of the world that went to 3 different colleges, including WKU, where he got a degree, was at NC State last year, and then comes out and boots a 59-yarder, like you said, with room to spare.
Yeah, man. That, again, to your point, that's what is opportunity, man. Young guys getting opportunity. When I became a veteran, and you start seeing some guys coming from sometimes even smaller colleges that didn't get the fanfare, if you will, the acknowledgement, because it came from smaller schools, and they get up here and they get their chance to shine, man. You root for guys like that, because we all understand it as players, and I'm thinking the fans understand this, man. The NFL is not for long, and opportunities come far and few. And to get an opportunity to shine in a professional game, man, and give yourself a time or two to, turn heads. And that's exactly what he did today. I think he's not going to be a guy that will be without a job throughout this whole season. I think when it comes down to it, whether it be an injury and somebody pulls him, or even if the Titans try to put him on practice squad, but somebody's going to pluck him from that. So I don't, based off of what we see and the strength of his leg in this day and age, and points are our premium, it'd be hard to pass a guy that can kick a 60-yarder like it's 40.
A lot to get to today. What you saw from the two quarterbacks. No Will Levis tonight for the Titans, but Malik Willis gets the start. Mason Rudolph finishes it out. Both of them rotating in between. Jaquan Jackson, another nice performance. Jalen Harrell flashed again with a couple of sacks. The 7th-round rookie out of Michigan. 38 players did not dress tonight for the Titans. That was according to Mike Keith on the Titans radio broadcast. There were some injuries to note. Kearis Jackson left the game, was questionable to return with a knee injury. We did not see him come back in. He did have one kickoff return tonight for 30 yards. Brian Callahan indicated in his post-game press conference that it doesn't seem like it's anything too serious, but Jabari Small went into the tent, came back out onto the field afterwards. Defensive lineman T.K. McClendon also left the game at one point as well. Titans defensive line already took a hit depth-wise with Marlon Davidson being placed on injured reserve, the depth defensive lineman out of Auburn. That transaction came down on Friday. And even before the game kicked off today, Dice, for all we have to talk about from what transpired between Titans and Seahawks, Arden Key, it seems, is not going to be suspended 6 games in 2024.
Yeah, I saw that.
Unusually enough, the news broken by Jeffrey Simmons on his social media account. And now Brian Callahan said after the game that, he's not going to comment on that until they get official word from the league that the appeal was won and that Key's not going to be suspended. We never saw official word from the NFL that Key was going to be suspended.
Right,
so I guess they were going through this process. But, man, that would be huge news. And suddenly the script is kind of flipped for the edge rushing group, where it went from, oh, you're in trouble if you needed depth there anyway, and now you're going to be missing Arden Key for 6 games, to suddenly, Key could be back for those games, and you've got a 7th-round rookie kind of emerging in the preseason.
Yeah, adding to that depth as you talked about. To see that before the game, that had to be a sense of relief. Again, depth is one thing I feel like Rand has built on this roster, and quality depth at that. When you're talking about really close battles at the third running back spot, right? We're talking about those type of conversations. The second and third quarterback, like we're talking about some quality depth. And if you get to a roster where you are having these conversations of quality depth, and then you're able to pick guys like Jalen Harrell and get them acclimated to the NFL game where they can come in and spell a guy like Arden Key. This is shaping up to be a pretty stellar roster. Now, you still got to gel game plan. Injuries play a part throughout the year, so we don't get ahead of ourselves. But I love what they're doing so far. I'm buying what they're selling right now. But it is preseason. Don't want to get too far ahead of the game. But I love the direction that things are where they're going.
Malik Willis with the start went 12 of 16, 116 yards and an interception. He added 4 carries for 30 yards, the second lead rusher on the night for the Titans. Mason Rudolph was 10 of 17 for 125 yards and a touchdown. He chipped in 4 carries for 15 yards, also led the Titans down the field on the 2-minute drill late to set up the 46-yard game winner by Braden Narvison. Again, 16-15, the final. Titans over Seahawks in preseason week number 2. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. The rest of this show is all about you. 615-737-1045. Jump in. Tell us what you saw tonight as the Titans win in the last second over the Seahawks in preseason week 2. Your phone calls coming up next on the Lee Company Titans Talkback, next on 104.5 The Zone. 16-15, the final. Titans over Seahawks in preseason game number 2. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. 615-737-1045. That's how you jump in. We'll pause for a quick station ID before we jump to the phones. You want to jump in, talk to Titans legend Kevin Dyson, react to the preseason win over the Seahawks. Malik Willis, Mason Rudolph splitting the reps at quarterback. Hardly any starters out on the field. I counted Nick Folk with a kickoff and an extra point, and Morgan Cox long snapping, KD. Other than that, I don't know that there was a single one. But 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We'll lead off with Jeremy in Nashville up first. What's up, Jeremy?
Hey, good evening, guys. You're talking about the quality of depth that the roster is building, with getting them out there to play in these preseason games. And, I think it's a good problem for the Titans organization and the fans to get to talk about, is to have all these options. And I just was curious, Kevin, as to what you thought about how does it look from, they call it, the war room or whatever, when they're trying to decide who to keep, who to put on the practice squad, specifically from the running backs position, because all these guys seem to be showing up and showing their value. And again, this is, I'm buying what they're selling as well. They're putting together, a quality coaching staff, and it seems like the players are together. The post-game interview that Coach Callahan gave, just listening to what he had to say, it shows you that, they're building a roster and a team that we can get behind, and I think they're really going to compete, if everybody, good Lord willing, they all stay healthy. But I just wanted to see what you guys had to say about that and what it looks like.
Yeah, you've heard me say it the first couple of weeks of this preseason of when you start talking about that latter part of that roster, that back half, it becomes about value and not value in your position you play. That's one of them. But what else do you add? I looked on the Seahawks roster and they had a guy, Butler, maybe started at safety or corner, but also had /safety on his resume, if you will. And again, that's a guy who, we can plug him as safety. So you're going to keep a guy like that that's multidimensional, right? That can play multiple positions. And so you start thinking about the running back position. And I started paying attention a little bit this evening, on who's on special teams, who's returning kicks, and things of that nature. Because that, to me, that's where they're evaluating them the most. Like, yeah, they're going to run the ball. Who's picking up blitz protection? Who's hitting their run keys? Who's stretching the hole appropriately? Who's putting their foot down appropriately? All that stuff's important, right? All those things come to play. But how well are they blocking on punch protection? Are they on the kickoff team? Are they returning kicks? That's the added bonus that you need for guys on that part of the roster in the NFL locker room, because you don't have that luxury of college football where you got 90-something guys on your roster. Sometimes in high school you got 70, 80, maybe 100 guys in high school, right? Where you can have 2 or 3 guys that don't do anything but one kickoff and things of that nature. Your starters don't have to do that. So, that to me was what I have seen, at least today, because so many guys did both today. They played offensive, defense, and they did special teams because so many guys sat out. I'd be interested to hear Callahan speak on this at his presser this week after they get a chance to watch the film of who stood out to him. And that's going to be a telltale sign because, we talk about the kicker. That to me, that stood out, right? That's somebody people are going to have a conversation with. But the other part of that is who's standing out on special teams and played, however many snaps they had today and did special teams. That's the guys you want to start, like, okay, yeah, that's going to be the guy they're going to look to keep, right? And again, people are going to start getting cut next week as well. That's going to be, they're watching film of some of these other guys too that might add some depth.
Well, you mentioned the running back position and how that factors into special teams, and there's quite a battle going on now for that third running back spot.
Right.
Pollard and Spears, we know what their status is on this team, did not suit up today, unsurprisingly. Julius Chestnut, Hassan Haskins, Jabari Small, B French on YouTube on the F&M Bank chat, says Chestnut has locked in the RB3 job. He did lead the team in rushing today, 13 carries, 45 yards. That's an average of 3.5 yards per carry, a long of 22, and he added 2 catches for 29 yards out of the backfield. Jabari Small, 7 carries for 13 yards. Hassan Haskins, 5 carries, also for 13 yards. Jabari Small added 24 receiving yards on 4 catches. Hassan Haskins did not have any catches on the day. So what did you observe from that running back battle and how it plays into the special teams role that you need out of that position?
Yeah, I think you said it best. I mean, it's from a statistical standpoint, it's pretty balanced, right? Other than Chestnut getting a majority of the carries today, but they're all pretty consistent. I saw, I'm trying to think who it was now. It might have been Chestnut. I saw him on a flash fake pick up the blitz, and that was crucial because I think I got a critical third down completion out of it too. So that was it was crucial. And you watch for little things like that for guys in your backup that they know their job responsibilities and they do it well. I think from a running back's perspective, I think you also want a guy, and you talked about it, that can catch the ball out of the backfield and extend drives as well in the screen game. Can beat a linebacker in one-on-one from time to time. Also, I want a guy that can get short, tough yardage. Not that the 2 starters can't, but I do like having an extra. Now, this is my personal take on it. A physical presence. I mean, I think that's part of football, especially when you start getting in crunch time and that 4-minute drill when you need that tough yards. You know, it'd be nice to have a solid guy that can move the pile a little bit. So it's going to be. I mean, again, I know people are saying it's kind of a foregone conclusion, but I still think there's some guys out there that are battling that can make it hard for them to go ahead and say this is who it is one way or the other.
Yeah, that's one I think will go to the end of camp.
Mm-hmm.
And Julius Chestnut's used to this kind of thing, right?
For what, 3 years now?
Yeah, out of Sacred Heart, UDFA. Mm-hmm. He was kind of the surprise name on the initial 53 last year,
right,
at the end of the preseason. And then he was off it and then back, on the practice squad and up and down. Hassan Haskins is a guy that was, a 4th-round pick out of Michigan, played high-level college football. And then Jabari Small out of Tennessee, undrafted guy, but beat out Dylan Johnson, who was very productive at Washington last year. I mean, almost immediately, the Titans waived Dylan Johnson, who they signed as a UDFA pairing with Small. Johnson, by the way, who scored the game-winning touchdown today for the Panthers as time expired against the Jets, landed in Carolina. But Julius Chestnut's used to this type of thing.
Yeah.
And he consistently performs in the preseason. So if you're going to take what happens in practice and the games, KD, for me, it's hard not to look at Julius Chestnut as the leader out of those 3 guys.
Yeah, and he catches the ball well enough out of the backfield. But again, does he have the same explosiveness as Haskins?
Sure.
You know what I mean? And again, compared to the other dynamics of the 2 1A, 1B running backs, and how is that complementing to them too? I have a hard time just going ahead and saying Chestnut is the guy, just because I've been around this game a long time, and as soon as you think you've got it figured out, you know what it is, they go in a whole different way. And then it's inevitable. Every year we'd be in the locker room and you'd be like, oh, they cut him? Oh, wow. Like, he had a great camp. They kept this guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it happens every year, and we don't know what they're thinking and why they go a direction that they do or don't. Some of it is, be real, some of it's financial. This guy might make $1.2 million where we can save and pay him $550. I could say that little cap space to maybe bring in something else later or something to that. So that also plays a factor too, whether we want to talk about that or not, right? That's some of those puzzle pieces that Rand has to maneuver and manage as he's had this big cap space to sign guys and trade and do some different things in the draft and free agency. And now he's still got to think about that first day roster, that salary cap number. So that's you got to say that's got to play a part in it as well.
And I say that strictly based on what I've seen from Chestnut at the running back position, not factoring in special teams there. So Hassan Haskins very well could have more value on special teams. That's what Chef Ran on the F&M Bank chat points out. Michael on YouTube asks, where was Keiris Jackson? He left the game before halftime with a knee injury, was questionable to return. had one kickoff return that went for 30 yards. He did not have a catch today. He flashed a little bit at joint practice against the Seahawks, especially in one-on-ones, which typically, I suppose, will favor the receiver. But Brian Callahan didn't seem too concerned with Kearis Jackson and his injury status post-game. But maybe we'll get more on that. Callahan will meet with the media again tomorrow. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We go to Eric in Nashville up next. What's up, Eric?
Hey, guys. First of all, I hope it is true about Arden Key, because I actually saw a local report on the news tonight about that. So, even though supposedly it has been announced, you hope that is the case.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Guys, guys, there were two things I would talk about. Actually, one of the two things you actually asked my question, I was going to talk about the kicker, but of course you said that Nick Folk says that, Brian Callahan said that Folk is the kicker, although Arbison, I guess the kicker, it made his case, and if he's not here, he's definitely going to be with an NFL team, because he certainly was impressive tonight. Mm-hmm. But I also wanted to talk, guys, about the quarterback play, and I guess I'm kind of nitpicking on some stuff, but whether it's fair or not, every little thing you look at, and the fact is that Mason Rudolph did throw a touchdown pass, and also the fact that he led them down the field for a last-second field goal win, and Seattle got the field goal after the Malik Willis interception. Whether it was his fault or not, I don't know, but that certainly doesn't help. And also, I noticed where on the first three drives that Malik had, he had good plays on the very first play of each drive of the first three drives, where he had the 15-yard pass, he had another 7-yard pass on the second first drive of the second drive. And then on the first play of the third drive, he had a good run. But then after that, they got bogged down, whether it was penalties, whether he got sacked. There was another where a receiver had the ball in his hands and the ball got dropped, whether that was Malik's fault or the receiver's fault. And also there was another play where, I don't know if the ball was just like overthrown, the receiver ran the wrong route, it was a miscommunication, whatever. Even though those are little things, that still adds up, and it determines whether or not we're going to carry 2 or 3 quarterbacks on the team. Hopefully, I guess he'll get a chance next week. He can play better. Just want to get your thoughts on that. Yeah. Guys, it's always good to talk to you guys. Y'all take care and have a great weekend. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Eric.
I remember last year I was talking about the whole punter thing, and the conversation out of camp was they're going with the young, strong leg, the wily veteran who has been a consummate Pro Bowl player.
2 years ago, right? Kern versus Stonehouse.
2 years ago. I'm sorry. I'm old, y'all. Time's running together. But 2 years ago, sorry. Last year's when he got hurt. But and remember, I was hesitant to say, man, no way you get rid of a veteran who's been so consistent for you, knows how to position a football and all that stuff. But I think you were telling me, like, man, the way they're talking about in camp and the way he booms that football, they feel like they can coach the other part. You can't coach that leg strength. Is this, to me, and again, this is a whole new regime, this is a whole new administration and coaching staff. Philosophies might be a little bit different, but this is eerily similar to that, just because of you got this young dude who's just got this cannon for a leg and has been accurate, right? It hasn't been like he's just spraying the ball all over, not like the wild thing in Major League Baseball from those people that are in my generation. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But he got this leg. He makes it a compelling story after tonight that, Nick, who did have some 50-yarders last year, and they got through, and he was pretty consistent. He had a high percentage make last season. But I know coaches also creatures of habit, and trust is a big thing with coaches. If I got this veteran who has been in Super Bowls, who has been in these moments, who I know has been in tough moments, I can plug him in a fourth quarter of a division game against an opponent that we got to win this game to stay in the playoff hunt. I can plug Folk in there, and I know I can trust him. Whether he makes or not, there's a trust level there. But it's hard to look at a guy like tonight and sit there and say, man, this dude kicked a 59-yarder and still had room to go, and he made that look easy, and he was accurate. Do we pay him a little bit less and see what he can do, or do we stick with the veteran? Now, they're going to your point, they said they're going to stick with the veteran, but it just makes for a compelling story. I just remember that same conversation we had a couple of years ago, and they went with the leg. And now he's he's about to be a perennial Pro Bowler. If he doesn't get hurt, he's going to the Pro Bowl.
He was dressed out today.
Yeah.
Ty Zentner continues to handle punting duties, but I think they feel good about Ryan Stonehouse being available.
Yeah.
Week 1 in Chicago. But yeah, it's an interesting comparison. It really is. I mean, Nick Folk, you're talking about a 39-year-old kicker.
Yeah.
Who his only attempt last week from 52. And I believe, looking at it after the fact, that ball was tipped a little bit on the way up.
Yeah.
But either way, he missed his only field goal attempt of the preseason. Started tonight, had the opening kickoff, had the extra point after the touchdown to Nick Westbrook-Akine thrown by Mason Rudolph. But like you said, Brian Callahan after the game mentioning Nick Folk still has a firm grasp on the kicking job.
Yeah.
No doubt, though, Braden Narveson got us talking about him.
He's gonna have a lot of people talking about him.
Yes, no doubt. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Let's talk a little bit about the wide receiver position tonight, KD, because couple of guys that stood out. Nick Westbrook-Akine, Mr. Reliable as always, catches the only touchdown of the night, 15 yards.
Kind of the forgotten guy.
Just keeps showing up, KD. The consistency of NWI over the last 4 or 5. He got here in 2020 as a UDFA out of Indiana. Shows up again tonight, 15-yard touchdown over the middle to match his jersey number, thrown by Mason Rudolph. And that brings us, actually, to our Kellum Science Behind the Stat. On that touchdown, Nick Westbrook-Akine makes the catch over the middle and dragged 375 pounds of Seahawks defenders into the end zone with Kayvon Wallace, former Titan defensive back, that weighs 205 pounds, and DJ James, the Seahawks DB, that weighs 170 pounds, both clinging onto him for dear life. That is presented by Kellum Stem Cell. From autism to arthritis, your body, your cells, your solution. Call 615-850-4415 for your consultation. So that's the least surprising thing of the night, that NWI showed up in the preseason game. But Jaquan Jackson, KD, continues to show up in preseason games and in training camp. He flashed multiple times in joint practices against the Seahawks this week. He leads the team in receiving tonight, 4 catches, 57 yards, had a 14-yard punt return and a 19-yard kickoff return.
Yep, and just keeps showing up on the page, man. Listen, if you're a guy and you see a perennial Pro Bowler, high-price free agent, another high-price free agent for Boyd, but he's probably got him for a bargain too when you think about it. You got a first-round draft pick, you got a veteran like NWI that's sitting there, right? And then for a guy like Jackson, it's almost no pressure, and I don't know if he feels pressure or not, because he's playing with house money, right? You look at what's ahead of you per se, you can just go out there and relax and be you, and that's, to me, is kind of what he's doing. He's going out there and just being him. He's an explosive guy, get the ball in his hands. He can run after the catch. We've seen him in the return game. He just out there, you know what? He's drafted. He's almost not expected to be here. I mean, you look what's ahead of him, right? You thinking, well, if maybe he'll make the roster. He's out there just having a ball, but he's making a statement with that. It's going to be very interesting how they map these receivers out. I think talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and what they're going to do with Treylon Burks. Somebody asked me, is there more pressure on him for this year, considering...
That was me.
Yes.
Yeah, we had that conversation.
That's right. And there's more pressure for him this year, considering what has happened as far as free agents and all that kind of stuff. And I made the argument that there isn't. He can actually go out there and just play right now, because now the pressure's off. He's not expected to be the guy anymore. He can just go out there and play and maybe be auditioning for the other 31 teams that might be able to use his services, depending on who that is, right? And so to me, it was like he kind of take the pressure off of him. If I'm not having that pressure of having to be the man, you can just go out there and play. Then you might you might see a different Treylon Burks. And from all information that's coming out in camp and practices, he's had a pretty good camp, right? Now, is he the fourth guy? Well, he's going to be the third guy this for the few weeks anyway, but now, if that's the case, he's the fourth guy. NWI, does he move to 5? And now is the interesting conversation. You got 2 guys who started a lot of games for this franchise, let alone this league, who are now 4 and 5. That's pretty good depth. And then you add a guy potentially, I'm not going to crown him yet, like Jackson, who's shown explosiveness in the return game. That's a pretty good receiving core, especially when D-Hop gets back. So it's a great problem to have. Depth is always great. Coaches, any coach in America would tell you, if it's hard for me to decide between 1 or 2 guys, that's a great problem to have, because that's how your team gets better, because practices are competitive, right? Because everybody wants the bag. Everybody wants to compete. Everybody wants to be the guy, right? And so it makes your practices better. You compete. You're out there, and then you're getting better on a daily basis. And then, Sunday's just not, I don't say it ain't easy. It's never easy, but it becomes easier. How about that? It becomes easier.
There is something to Jaquan Jackson on those punt returns when he fields the ball, and the way he kind of rounds into his top gear, right? Like he kind of finds that angle, and you can see him, because he's not that, catch and then straight line runner. Yeah. He doesn't seem like the guy that's just trying to juke everybody out, trying to be shifty, go sideline to sideline. KD, he just kind of catches it, and I'm curious how you watch these guys as somebody that used to return punts when you played for Utah in your college days. But he catches it and then just sort of rounds into his top gear when he finds that lane. And then when he hits that top speed, it's really fun to watch. And he can make guys miss. We saw it in the 26-yard return in week 1 of the preseason. But I'm always curious. I mean, how does somebody that has returned punts in their career watch punt returners?
I think what you watch for a guy is how he's setting it up. So what you're talking about is what he's doing. He's trying to get guys to overcommit to chasing him down to that angle, like thinking that he's going to try to beat them to the sideline or where it is, so he can plant that foot and get as much as he can by having them overly committed, because he knows he has the advantage. So he's not full speed. He's running hard, trying to get them to overcommit to that upfield shoulder so they can plant and come back in the opposite direction and get as many yards as he can. And that's what he's doing. And there's a couple of school of thoughts when we return kicks. One is catch it, go for it, get what you can get. The other, another one is try to beat the guys with speed to the outside, to the edge, or set up walls and things of that nature. And then you got a guy, what you're talking about, where he's trying to create angles so he can find a crease. He's trying to buy himself some time. Devin Hester, Dante Hall, some of these guys had that knack, that uncanny ability to get guys to chase them, and then knowing all good and well they were planning on planting and cutting back in a different direction because they got you to overcommit. And now they have the advantage. You might be able to stop on a dime, but they're going forward and you're going lateral. And so that's where I think what he's trying to do.
615-737-1045 is how you jump in. It is Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. So Jaquan Jackson, as we said, led the way in receiving, 4 catches, 57 yards, a long of 24. The next leading receiver was a tight end in David Martin Robinson, 3 catches for 38 yards.
There you go.
Running back Jabari Small chipped in 4 catches for 24 yards. Bryce Oliver continues to show up in the preseason. Targeted 6 times, 3 catches for 22 yards. Mason Kinsey with a pair of catches for 29. Julius Chestnut, 2 catches for 29. And Nick Westbrook-Akine, 2 catches for 20 yards. And the lone touchdown of the day for the Titans offense. By the way, the Higginbotham right call of the game is the decision made by Brian Callahan to go for it on 4th and 1 with a QB sneak by Mason Rudolph to set up that Nick Westbrook-Akine touchdown over the middle instead of trotting out the field goal team on that drive. Higginbotham can be your business teammate by helping manage your risks, limit your liability, put a plan of action in place, and control your costs. Insurance plans for your company and your assets. It's all online at higginbotham.com. One more time, the quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph, 10 of 17, 125 yards and a touchdown. He led the game-winning drive, 2-minute situation late for the game-winning field goal by Braden Narveson, 46 yards for the win. Malik Willis got the start, rotated in and out after the first couple drives for the offense, went 12 of 16 for 116 yards and an interception. Where are you right now on this backup quarterback battle? Because they're calling it a battle. And, I'll take Brian Callahan at his word,
right.
But I can't help but watch these games and see Malik Willis flash at times, see the athleticism, see him throw a bullet over the middle to David Martin Robinson. But also there are lapses, right? Holding on to the ball too long, missing Nick Westbrook-Akina on a wide open route over the middle of the field early. And then I watch Mason Rudolph on the last drive of the game, KD, and I feel like I'm just watching not a 10-year pro or a Pro Bowl quarterback, but just what a veteran backup is supposed to look like. Playing with and against backups, yes, but in a 2-minute situation, he's getting guys to the line of scrimmage. He's barking at them, marshaling them at the line of scrimmage, telling them where to be, making quick, decisive decisions about when to run, who to throw it to. And it just continues to be harder and harder for me to imagine anything other than Rudolph as this team's backup quarterback.
Well, I'll swing this question back to you. What do you put a premium on consistency or upside and talent?
For your backup quarterback,
yeah.
The first one.
Yeah. See, and that depends on what the Titans want to go with. I think a lot of people, as you see in a lot of NFL, especially when you have a young quarterback, they tend to go with a veteran consistency, a guy who has seen a lot of ball. The issue, if you will, with Malik is he was drafted here. He's a guy still learning. He has a lot of talent, and he is progressively getting better. You can tell he's getting better incrementally every year. But that consistency is not there, and that's going to come with experience, right? Mason has been a backup in this league, has started a lot of games in this league, has won some games in this league by having that experience and being here as long as he has and being in the offensive systems of the NFL a lot longer. And Malik has not had that consistency. I think this is his third coordinator in 3 years, right? So it's a level of him still trying to figure out his own talent, let alone learning a third offense and what this coordinator wants from him, from his ability. So, I think I asked you that question, what would you prefer? And I think most people in organizations tend to side with that judgment unless it was a guy you just drafted and say they just drafted Malik. I think then we'd have a different conversation. Now we're in year 3 with him, and it's like, okay, do we got a potentially good roster, we go with that guy that's consistent and just maybe have Malik do something different, or do we continue to put our investment in Malik and work and get him better to be a potential starter in this league? So, that remains to be seen. I think they both did, like you said, did some good things today. Like, to your point, Mason did look like he just, that consummate pro, just gets it. Is no moment's too big for him. But you see the flashes of brilliance from Malik, and then you have the ones scratch your tempo, as I said early on in the show, where like the pick that got away from it. I forgot about the throw across the middle. You're like, ooh, if he hits that one, that's a big play,
Yeah.
And a couple times he held on the ball a little bit too long. But a few plays later, he extends a drive. Yeah, with his legs, because he sees it. He sees the rush, and he's able to make. Then he hits a nice little read of a guy across the middle, and he had, you know what I mean. So you see the potential there, and that's where you get it. You get kind of enamored with, because he does have a lot of potential. So again, that's why I asked the question: what do you put that premium on right now?
Willis did lead the 14-play, 73-yard drive that took 9:23 off the clock. It did not end in a touchdown. They were able to get down to the Seahawks 3, just could not punch it in. That was the first field goal of the night by Braden Narvison, 21-yarder that made it a 12-10 Seahawks lead very early on, within the first minute of the fourth quarter. But Malik Willis got the start. It'll be interesting to see what they want to do with Will Levis next week, how much that depends on what happens in the upcoming practices. 2 padded practices coming up before they finish out the preseason in New Orleans against the Saints next Sunday. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. It is Titans Talkback, presented by League Company. Coming up next, we'll give you the Kroger sacks for cash count, as one young Titans edge rusher just continues to show up in the preseason. We'll do that next. This is Titans Talkback with Kevin Dyson on 104.5 The Zone.
Third down play, 3 receivers to the right. Walker going to look that way. Going to be in trouble. Going to be sacked! There he is again. That's Jalen Harrell. His second of this ball game.
Jalen Harrell, 2 sacks on the night for the rookie 7th-round pick out of Michigan. The first was a sack fumble that was not recovered by the Titans. It was recovered by a Seahawks offensive lineman, but he got the ball out on a sack against Sam Howell. And then that one in the second half to lead the team in sacks this preseason. And he just continues to make noise. Brian Callahan been very complimentary of Jalen Harrell throughout the course of training camp and the preseason. Stepped up again tonight. Titans totaled 3 sacks tonight as we get to the Kroger sacks for cash. 2 by Jalen Harrell, 1 by Isaiah Eiton, the undrafted rookie out of Rutgers. So for the season, Kroger's donation to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee now stands at $500 courtesy of those 3 sacks tonight. Every time the Titans sack the opposing team's quarterback, Kroger donates $100 to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee from Kroger. Through its Zero Hunger, Zero Waste plan, Kroger is committed to ending hunger in our community. So a little bit about Jalen Harrell, KD, as you can join us, 615-737-1045. Obviously came out of Michigan and was a national champion, really broke through with 7.5 sacks last year for the Wolverines at that outside linebacker spot. He played for Mike McDonald, who was Jim Harbaugh's defensive coordinator at Michigan in 2021. Mm-hmm. McDonald, now obviously the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, the defensive coordinator of the Ravens last year. When McDonald got to Michigan in 2021, he moved Harrell to an off-ball linebacker spot. He played in all 14 games in that season. Obviously, they went to the playoff. He only totaled 15 tackles, started 4 games. Then Jesse Minter arrives at Michigan, former Vanderbilt DC, currently Harbaugh's DC for the LA Chargers, and he moves Harrell back to outside linebacker in 2022. He becomes a starter again, puts up 3.5 sacks, and then takes a big jump as a leader of the defense, and statistically last year in that national championship winning season also had double-digit TFLs. He's also a former teammate of Nicholas Petit-Frere's. They went to high school together. Down at Tampa, Berkeley. So all sorts of ties with Jalen Harrell and going up against his former defensive coordinator and Mike McDonald, who tried to make him an off-ball linebacker, playing with his former high school teammate Nicholas Petit-Frere, and all the while having a very solid preseason and training camp at a position of need depth-wise for the Titans at edge rusher.
Yeah, and I think you said it earlier in the show. Auditions are plentiful for young guys, and you just want in the storylines for guys that step up and make it hard for the organization to get rid of them. And I think he's one of them. The talk out of camp is he's been consistent. I think one thing that you hear coaches talk about, whether here or whatever, is consistency. That repeat performance, right? You don't want a guy just all of a sudden he's catching the ball one hand on Tuesday, but on Wednesday he drops everything. Like, you know what I mean? Like you want that consistency. He understands the plays. He's not making a lot of mental errors. He's getting after the quarterback, whatever his position responsibilities are. You want to see that on a consistent basis day to day. And that is the conversation about him coming out of training camp. And we've seen in the first 2 preseason games is consistency. And if you got a young guy like that you know is consistent, that you can plug in that rotation, man, that's again, we talk about that luxury of depth. That's a very good luxury. And then I keep talking about value. He's inexpensive in relative to pass rushers, right? And guys that get out the quarterback, he's inexpensive because he is in his first contract, low draft pick, things of that nature. So, kudos to him, man, because again, if the Titans, again, with their depth and things they're doing, it'd be hard to let him go. But if they happen to have to, based on roster moves and what they decide to do and they might keep 7 receivers and that takes a linebacker spot, whatever it might be. We don't know just yet. He won't be out there long. There's going to be some people, if Seattle ain't one of them that considers it, I don't know who else will, right? It's you or San Fran, because he has played well in the first 2 games, and he practiced well against Seattle all week. So they've seen him. And again, all these these GMs and coaches across the league, they know each other. They've been around each other for years. They talk. They're willing and dealing all the time. So he won't, if he's not a Titan, he will have a job.
Seems like he's playing his way towards being a Titan.
Yeah.
Again, it's not necessarily a deep position group.
Right.
Landry and Key are your A and B starters. They brought in Shane Ray, the former first-round pick, who's been making some plays at practice. Just looks like a veteran with the physical makeup of a former first-round pick in the NFL. He's been around. He's got to be, I was wondering, Dice, he's got to be the only, I wonder if he's the only active NFL player with a Grey Cup ring, because he won the Grey Cup with the Toronto Argonauts. There's got to be a list somewhere of those guys. But anyway, Shane Ray is a part of that group. Caleb Murphy, who was kind of the preseason darling at that position last year as an undrafted rookie out of Ferris State, had crazy numbers at Ferris State, flashed in the preseason, thought, okay.
Again, we had that conversation about him last year.
This conversation we're having about Harrell, we kind of had about Murphy, but it's a little different, right? Harrell was drafted, 7th round, but he was drafted. He didn't play for Ferris State. He played for Michigan. He played for the national champions, was a leader on the defense of the national championship winning football team. 6'4", 247, high-level college football player. Feels like Harrell, now Murphy's still working. He's still out there. He's playing in the preseason. But it does feel like Harrell could have a quicker path to the roster than maybe Murphy did last year.
Yeah, I could definitely see that argument. And you know, they've already invested a draft pick capital into him anyway. But he's, for what it's worth, he has shown his worth in that, it being a 7th-round pick and getting a couple sacks, forced fumble. Just pops off the page, man. He's the first 2 weeks, he's filling the stat sheet, and that's what you want from a guy. Anyway, especially a guy you get late in a draft, maybe in a free agent. That's what we were talking about Murphy last year. Is he was filling up the stat sheet in the preseason, making it hard. You got to make it a hard decision for them, you know. And if you do that, you make a hard decision for the team you're with. Other teams take notice, and you get opportunities from another team, and especially for a guy that's late in the draft or a free agent pick, make it hard for them to cut you, because all that does is elevate your stock for everybody else.
You can hop in, 615-737-1045. It is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. Alongside Dr. Kevin Dyson, I'm Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams is our producer. Titans win tonight, 16-15 in preseason game number 2 over the Seattle Seahawks at Nissan Stadium. 3 fourth-quarter field goals by the undrafted rookie kicker Braden Narveson, a 21-yarder, a 59-yarder, and a 46-yarder at the death for the Titans to start 2-0 in Brian Callahan's first preseason as an NFL head coach. When we have these discussions this time of year about guys that may or may not make the team and how many are they going to keep here and there, and if they keep, let's say 7 receivers, who, where is that one spot going to be taken away from? That type of conversation. As a player who had a spot secured, like you didn't need to worry about whether or not you were going to be on the initial 53, would you pay attention to that stuff? Would you almost be doing it in your head? Like, you know what? Like, I think we wonder if we keep him and maybe let go of this guy. Were you doing that type of stuff, like on the sideline of a preseason game?
We always do. Not necessarily during the game. We watch the game and we root for guys, because we all understand that this opportunity is not for long for all of us, whether you're a first-round pick or not. The average career is less than 3 years or right at 3 years. And so anytime a guy can defy the odds, get opportunity to play, we root for that, man. And even the guys that have everything for them, like myself, first-round pick, you're going to have opportunity to play. And you root for guys to get opportunities, man, because this is unique. There's less than 1% of the population people get the opportunity to play in the National Football League, and it's a unique opportunity to play a kid's game for a king ransom, and to see a guy shine like that, man, you can't help but root for that. But then to your point of, do we watch that? I think we all do. We all locker watch, right? You go in, you go work out, and you see a locker cleaned out, like, dang, they cut that guy. Like, he had a great camp. Or then you're like, oh, what receivers are we keeping? And then there is some anxiety to go with it, because you just never know, right? You might be traded for something that they may need. You never know, because that is part of this process as they're building rosters, right? And as happened before, my man Derek Mason was almost traded from here at one point one year. They were trying to shop him around, and he was having that anxiety of not knowing where he was going to be. And then I forget the return man. I forget his name. Came from Chargers. Ended up getting hurt, and they kept Mason, and he became a consummate one of the best receivers to play the game pro. But you just at one point they were ready to ship him to pastor at one point, right? So it's just the nature of the business. We all are aware of it. We all understand the nastiness of it, but we all root for one another. We want everybody. If we can keep all 100 guys, or whatever, I'm just throwing a number out there, all 100 guys and pay them and let them play, we would. But that's not up to the player. That's management. But at the opportunity, if I'm there, that's why when I hear people say, oh, they're just throwing in the towel, they didn't even try this game. Nah, you don't know the business of a professional athlete. One, especially football, you're not tanking no game. You can't, because if you go out there half speed, that's how you get hurt. And we're not talking just hurting my toe. No, we're talking like lifetime injuries you could potentially have if you out there half stepping, right? And two, if you put a bad product on the field, if you're not playing hard, that film goes to everybody. So if I'm not producing or I'm not showing up on the page, I'm not playing hard, that goes around to everybody else. So I'm not gonna get another opportunity. So that's why when I always scoff at people saying, oh, they tried to lose. No, that's never the case. I promise you that. Just sometimes people not gelling. Sometimes their chemistry is not there with a team. Sometimes teams clamor when it gets to certain moments where, we got this ball with 36 seconds left. Some teams just have that in them where they're going to find a way to win. We were like that in 99. Just the moment was never too big for us. But there's been other teams I've been on where, like, dang, we turned the ball over again with 1 minute to go. We didn't give ourselves a chance to win. It just kind of happens like that. But, to sit there and say that I didn't look at lockers and wonder, man, that first meeting, the whatever day after the last cut, is always interesting because you come to the locker room, you see empty lockers, you go in a meeting, and you start, okay, this is who we're going to battle with for right now. And you're like, dang, man, they cut so-and-so, so-and-so. And some of them, yeah, he probably needed to have been cut 3 weeks ago, but for the most part, there's a lot of guys like, man, he can play. But that just show you how close it is in the National Football League. A lot of guys, they make a roster, they're talented.
The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit LeeCompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Titans will be stepping away from their home stadium next Sunday, finishing out the preseason at the New Orleans Saints, a 1 p.m. Central kickoff time. So you can hear Titans Countdown on the air right here on the Zone starting at noon. And the Lee Company Countdown to Kickoff hitting the air at 10 a.m. next Sunday. Titans will be indoors after what was a hot week of practice. And temps were high at kickoff today. I mean, a 6 p.m. kick, but guys dealing with the heat, some cramping issues at practice this week. KD, was that an issue for you going into a season? Like, was there a pretty big acclimation period for you when it came to the heat in Middle Tennessee as a guy that had spent his college years in Utah?
Oh, my God.
That dry heat, right? I mean, that had to be an adjustment.
Absolutely. Like, again, being a first-round draft pick, all eyes are on you anyway. And I came from the mountains of Utah, high altitude, and running. Some of the best shape of my life. If we had conditioning tests in Utah, I would have smoked everybody. Like, they wouldn't even been close. That's how good a shape I was in. But I came out here in that muggy, thick air, and I could hardly breathe. I thought, they think I'm out of shape. And I was in great shape, but I just was not used to this humidity and that thickness of the air, and just, it drains you. You're sweating just walking outside. And you get, you have to get in air conditioner. You get out of the shower and you get out and you're already sweating again. Like, it took some time to get acclimated to that. And I made sure that year 2, I came home a few weeks early and trained here, getting ready for training camp, because I learned my lesson from my first training camp. Was like, I'm gonna stay home being in Utah as long as I could. It's gonna be a long season, blah blah blah. I came out here a couple days before training camp, signed my contract, and then went to the dorms at TSU. And then we had our conditioning test that next day, and I like to died, man. I said, man, this is rough out here, bro. And I knew they were probably thinking, like, I know this rookie is not out of shape, but it was just a different type of thickness to the air that took me some getting used to. Now, a lot of these guys now with the mini camps and the rookie camps come beforehand, they get some conditioning time in, so it's not as bad before as it was back then. But yeah, man, it's different, especially depends on where you're coming from, on the coastline you're coming from.
No starters played tonight. We will see if they suit up at all in New Orleans next Sunday.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll depend on the work they get in at practice this week. No more joint practices. They'll be at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. Padded practices Wednesday and Thursday this week. We'll be out there 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. live on site on 104.5 The Zone. What are you looking for against the New Orleans Saints next Sunday as they close out Brian Callahan's first preseason?
Well, I hope you get a series or two with the starters for both teams, just to condition your body again, like we were just talking about. Get a glimpse of what the potential can be against an NFL starting defense, whether it be 7, 8, 9, 10 starters, maybe not even their whole starting defense, but some veterans who understand the game and angles and speed and with teams' tendencies and things. And wonder, do they study film like a different way than you do in college? And I'd be curious. I would love to see that. Now, whether we see that or not remains to be seen. I think today made sense because they had some pretty aggressive and physical practices every day. When you go against somebody every day, you can't help but to, because you compete against a different jersey, right? So I understood why you rest your guys on that aspect of it. No sense in it for either team. But this one, when you're coming up, and it's the last time you'll play till September, what's that date? 7th, whatever that date is.
You're talking about week 1 in Chicago?
Yeah.
September 8th.
8th. And that's a pretty long time between August 25th and that date. So this is the last time you get to go against a different uniform, different speed of aggression, iron out a few kinks that you have. So you'd hope that they get a series or two in. And if they do, I want to see kind of the same mixture of play calling and aggressiveness we saw last week, and just kind of see what he's mapping out for this offense. And that's offensively and defensively, be able to see some of that aggression that he talks about, being aggressive and physical to the football and playing smart football. We hadn't seen the safeties back there yet. We haven't seen the D-line at its full strength yet. So, it'd be fun, and as a fan, to see them at quote-unquote full speed at their best with their ones out there for at least a series or two.
Yeah, we'll see if Levis and the starting offensive line and some of the receivers get back out there.
Yeah.
I could tell you we won't see Jeffrey Simmons. We won't see Harold Landry. Brian Callahan has come out and said those guys will not suit up in the preseason. Odds are we don't see L'Jarius Sneed. And Chido Awuzie should be coming out of that 2-week timeline that Callahan gave him for a calf injury, but I don't know if they'll trot him out there against New Orleans. Yeah. But we'll see. Brian Callahan will speak, obviously, throughout the course of the week, starting with tomorrow. Again, that is a 1 p.m. kickoff that you can hear Titans radio coverage starting here on The Zone as early as 10 a.m. before Titans countdown at noon to finish out the preseason. Around the NFL, some interesting storylines kind of starting to develop after week 2 of the preseason. One game is still in progress. Cowboys leading the Raiders 13-6. Trey Lance getting the start, 9 of 14, 64 yards and a touchdown. Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell continuing to battle it out for the starting quarterback role in Vegas. And if we thought that Braden Narvison was going to steal the show for kickers this week in the preseason, we were wrong, KD, because Brandon Aubrey, the Dallas Cowboys kicker, Brandon Aubrey drilled a 66-yard field goal just a few minutes ago for the Dallas Cowboys.
See? That bounces off the page, man. Like that's
crazy.
Why, I'm not saying we got a kicking controversy. I'm not saying that. But it is an interesting stat line that a guy kicked the ball 59 yards and still had room to go.
Aubrey, have you seen his story, Brandon Aubrey? Incredible story. I went to Notre Dame, never played a snap of football in his life. Went to Notre Dame to play soccer, was an excellent soccer player, was drafted, became a pro to go play for Toronto in MLS out of college, and soccer career kind of flamed out a little bit. Ended up, with Bethlehem Steel, which is a USL team, league below MLS, and just kind of flamed out about 4 years. Just it didn't happen for him, and he just got a job as a software engineer. That was his major, and he just kind of started working. And I think in 2019 or so, he's watching an NFL game with his wife where a guy misses a kick, and she just says, you could do that. And then COVID comes around, and everything gets shut down, and he goes out for a tryout with the Birmingham Stallions in the USFL. He gets a kicking coach, starts working on it, tries out, gets the job, becomes an incredibly successful kicker with the Stallions in the USFL. Mm-hmm. Cowboys give him a shot, and now he's got a big old contract, and he's the kicker of the Dallas Cowboys, nailing 66-yarders in the preseason.
God, that to show you perseverance is real, man. Just stay at it.
Crazy story.
You just never know when it's your moment.
A lot of quarterback storylines around the league, too. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields continue to kind of go back and forth. Nobody really seems to have a read on what that situation is going to be. Russell seems like he's the starter, but it just feels like that window is open for Justin Fields. And he was 11 of 17 today for 92 yards and did some things in the run game, too. 8 carries for 42 yards. Russ, 8 of 10 for 47 yards. And Jaden Daniels continues to impress. Caleb Williams continues to flash in the preseason. And then you got Pat Mahomes out here throwing behind-the-back passes to Travis Kelce. I think everybody's ready to get to week 1, KD.
Yeah. And I would say he's not playing next week, right? Because he played today.
I'd be shocked. Yeah. You got a couple series today.
Yeah. So that's kind of why I suspect Callahan's going to let his guys play a couple series next week, just to keep them in that moment, in that motion, that, getting ready for a season, because you're going to be sitting there for a week or two trying to get ready for a game. So, but yeah, man, it's going to be an interesting season. I'm excited to get this thing cranking. This is, as the Titans is concerned, the potential on offense and what we've seen so far in the multifaceted ways they want to use all their guys, I'm excited to see, because for so long it has been about Deuce. It's been about King Henry. And not that the receivers didn't have their moments of shining, especially A.J. Brown did and things of that nature, but it has been about Derrick Henry for so long. I'm just fascinated with the potential of going to this multi-dimensional offense and how it can be utilized to put up numbers and points that we have not been accustomed to for at least the last 6 years or so, 7 years or so. So I'm excited for that potential. We've been talking about an innovative play caller, a guy who can come out here and again, me, I'm a receiver. Yeah, yes, you want the ball in the air, but you still got to be able to run the football effectively. I don't care at what level, but it's going to be fun to watch how he uses his weapons at his disposal.
Be fun to watch the starters next Sunday if they do come out and play, and those guys still battling. Chance Campbell, another we did not mention today as we wrap things up, led the team in tackles for the second straight preseason game with 8. And Campbell had a PBU, had a TFL as well. All those battles we will continue to keep up with throughout the rest of camp, which we're not long for it. Week 1 coming up September 8th at the Chicago Bears. Only one game to go in the 2024 preseason. KD, always a pleasure. We'll do it again.
Yes, sir. I'll see you next week.
There you go. He is Dr. Kevin Dyson. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. Again, the final score tonight, the Tennessee Titans 16, the Seattle Seahawks 15 at Nissan Stadium. Titans will finish out the preseason next Sunday at the New Orleans Saints, a 1 p.m. Central kickoff. Titans radio coverage is produced by Philip Noel and Brad Willis. The studio producer is Joseph Hunkapiller. The promotions director is Rich Ferris. Director of sales is Hunter Rice. The general manager is Allison Warren. Operations manager is Paul Mason. And the executive producer of Titans Radio is Rhett Bryant. You can hear Mike Keith and Coach Dave McGinnis on the call again next Sunday. That'll do it for us. For Dr. Kevin Dyson, our producer Jackson Williams, I'm Lucas Panzica saying goodnight on 104.5 The Zone.